Does
Hey,
anyone else have anyone to add to the agenda today? If not, I'll need a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Art. Any discussion? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda today will be the minutes of the last meeting. Everyone's had a chance to look at them, I'm thinking. I'll need a motion to accept as presented unless someone has found any changes they'd like to make. So if there's no change, I'll ask someone to make a motion.
I can make that.
Thank you, Lesia. Discussion? If not, I'll declare the minutes approved as presented. Next thing on our agenda.
That was Dana.
Oh, sorry about that. For some reason, I'm hearing my audio is cutting in and out. So if I make a mistake, please correct me. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda is Paige Webster. Paige. For those of you, we're living way out here in rural Alberta. You have to realize internet is not the best in this country. That's why you're not seeing the rest of us. Some days it works, some days it doesn't. I know with myself, if I turn my camera on, I'm going to lose everybody. So that's why you're not going to be able to see me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I think this is a good way to, educate you, or maybe you already know about what site selection is. But I just thought I'd go through some quick slides. Bert and I, Bert, how long's it been? Almost a year now that Bert and I have been speaking with each other and going, just discussing some different avenues that your county can move forward on recruitment, business retention, expansion. And so he asked if I would put together this little presentation for you. I thought you were all going to be together, and then with this COVID mess, it's now virtual. But anyway, I appreciate your time, and if you'd like me to get into it, Mr. Chair, I would go ahead and start, or.
Sure. Dale, if I can have just a quick minute to kind of introduce Paige. We've got a good background and that kind of thing about Paige within the RFD, but I don't really feel it kind of does him justice. As you mentioned, we've been talking for the better part of a year or so now, and Paige has been around the site selection world for probably far too many years than he's willing to admit, but he's certainly a veteran, very well known and very experienced, and it's really been a pleasure to have a chance to get to know him and to talk a little bit about Woodlands and Northern Alberta in general, some of the opportunities and things we have. Paige's role is very much like what ours is with economic development. It's that of making connections, and so Paige, it's great to have you here. As you mentioned, we've kind of talked about this day for you to be able to come and present to our committee for a while, and it's exciting to have you here. And I'll turn it back over to you. But you're certainly, I think, the star of our show today.
Well, I'm not a star. I just do my work like everyone else does in their role. So,
when you're going through this, would you like to ask if we have a question to ask during as we're going through, or do you want us to wait till the end?
You could ask. We can make it ongoing, and if you just raise your, hit the raise hand, then I'll see it on the screen. Okay. And Bert, do you want me? I know you have my presentation up in front of you, but would you rather have me share my screen and then just run through it, or?
You know what? If it's easier
Actually, I can just tell you next. So
sure, whatever you think.
If that works for you, because I believe everybody that's on this call actually has it in front of them as well. I'm not quite sure if that's the case, but.
Yes. Yep. So
yes?
Go ahead, Paige. I'm
yes?
happy to be your page turner.
Yes, I have it.
And can you all see it on the screen? Bert has it up right now.
Yeah, it looks lovely.
Okay, great. Well, you can see the antelope running there, and we can go to the next, if you can just scroll down. I don't know how much the participants can see of this, but I've been doing site selection work for, gosh, over almost 30 years now. Our firm has been in business. I've been in different firms, working my way up, but over the last, well, I'm going on year 9. And so we do site selection, economic development, real estate management, consulting, and we've also just in the, probably within the last year, because of COVID, recruiting or helping companies has been a little difficult. So our pipeline went down, and we decided to merge with a merger and acquisition consulting firm. And of course, I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona. I don't know if you've all been to Phoenix, but I'm looking to come up to your area here soon. And anyway, so with the jobs that I've created, it's been over 4,000 with $2 billion in capital investment. And I've completed many successful economic development projects with economic development organizations. And there's my contact information. So if you have questions offline, or if the way I like to work is that I'll give you this briefing, but you may have a question down the road. So feel free to either send me a text. Bert and I were just speaking on WhatsApp. I'm on WhatsApp. So if you have any questions, we can go from there. All right, next slide, please. How many of you on the session here are familiar with site selectors? And I could just have a yes or a no from you.
New to most of it.
Okay. Well, we're kind of a small niche market. There's 275 to 300 of us in the United States. And I would say that there's probably maybe 450 globally. And what we do is we work with corporate real estate executives and other consultants to help them or analyze. We try to analyze the specific or the best location for a company. So ultimately, we're trying to recruit, or we're trying to create jobs within your county or your region. And to diversify the economy. I don't know if you've seen in the national news about how Amazon was looking for an eastern U.S. location, and many of the states, and I think even Toronto at the time, had submitted what we call an RFP, request for proposal, and then everybody really competes for those projects. That was a very large and an enormous project. I think it was creating close to 4,000 jobs. They ended up in Virginia. They were going to go to New York City. There was some politics that played into it, and they ended up in Virginia. But it's almost a science, and I'll get into my presentation here on how we do the analysis. So when we're working with the corporations, we call them end users. Next slide, please, Bert. So again, what we do is we analyze the requirements of the client. So if it's a transportation company, their major concern is transportation cost. If it's a, let's say I just finished up a crypto currency project. Their demand was not labor. It wasn't the building. It wasn't where it was located. What was driving that project was the cheapest electricity rates. And so that project, we looked nationally, and actually the state of Iowa came in with 3.4 cents per kilowatt hour, which was the lowest I could find in the United States. Unfortunately, that they had to maintain being in the United States. Otherwise, I would have come across the border, and I'm sure your electricity rates are lower than that. So
Yeah.
what we do is we research states, provinces, regions, cities for the best location. And then we'll find the real estate, and then we, if there are incentives, I know you typically at the local level there are incentives that is mainly at the provincial level. So we would talk to the province about subsidies that would help to bring in that creation of primary jobs. There are different types of site selectors, and you can go into the next slide, Bert, please. So some of them come from national accounting firms, such as what's on the slide, Ernst & Young, BDO. Some of them are national real estate firms, which would be like NAI or Avison Young. I don't know if those names ring a bell in your area. And then the rest of the 275 of us, we run our own boutique firms. So Bert wanted me to talk a little bit, next slide please, about how to farm new projects, how to bring in new capital, new jobs to the area. And a direct email and a snail campaign is very crucial. I get about 500 emails a day from communities asking me to have my clients locate in their community. Another way to get that out is by national publications. You know, here in the U.S., it could be like New York Times. Familiarization tours are very crucial. The more that we get to learn and kick the dirt in your area, the better we can connect our projects to your community or your county. And then last but not least, and this is kind of how Bert and I met, was he actually had somebody in his network that actually told him to give me a call. So he called me out of the blue, and we talked, and we're trying to work on some projects, and some of these projects typically take 12 to 18 months. Next slide, please, Bert. So where are the economic development projects generated? Well, typically it's, you know, we speak with corporations, either the CEOs, CFOs. Sometimes we're speaking to the human resource managers. They might be looking for 500 new employees. And so we have a network within the corporation. Other places that these projects may be generated is through different site selection consultant forums. And I know Bert's aware of them, and I'm not sure if the rest of the committee is aware, but there's a Site Selectors Guild, which is an organization, Industrial Asset Management Council, Cornet, and then at the top I have SiteLink Forum, and my firm actually runs that forum. We do about 4 a year, and we bring in 7 site selectors so that they can learn about the community, and then the communities can also learn about what the site selectors do. Site selectors, and I haven't seen you guys raise a hand, so anytime you need to ask a question. Site selectors, we work in many different industries. Some site selectors work just, you know, energy related projects. Some of them work in back office call centers. Some work in, you know, just industry specific. My firm, we actually work in all industry sectors. I've done things from food processing to back office call centers to biotech to oil and gas. I was kind of in the role of Bert. You have a question, Bert?
Yeah, Paige, if you can just maybe comment that you've done some other work within Canada as well, because I think that was sort of one of the ways that you and I connected so well, as you were already a bit familiar with us up here.
Yeah, and really that's the way a lot of the U.S. site selectors, unfortunately, about 9 years ago when I started this, my firm, a lot of the site selectors were not looking north of the imaginary border. We're all on the same continent. We all should work together, correct? Even though there's an imaginary line. And really, I got involved actually in Ontario about 8 years ago and assisted a community that was in the Durham region in Toronto. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that area. But it was very interesting because I was naive at the time and I got an invitation to come to a familiarization tour and it said, please come to Durham. Well, you know, that clicked in my head. I thought I was going to Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. I got involved and I read more into the invitation. I was going to Canada. So really what opened up the doors there is that I actually had a contract with that organization to introduce site selectors for the Durham region. And over the 1 year contract, that organization actually met 45 site selectors of 375. So is that where you were wanting me to go with that, Bert?
Yes, and just, you know, we do have Woodlands, Texas, and of course there's a number of communities named Blue Ridge on the southern side of that imaginary border, but we have Woodlands and Blue Ridge here, so we want you to come and see us here.
Yeah, exactly. Other places that projects are generated are accounting firms, like I spoke about earlier, and the commercial real estate firms, and I've given you examples. The other folks that are getting involved in this are the attorneys, because obviously there is laws involved when you're relocating or bringing in 100 to 200 jobs. The next thing that we look at is your target industry specific clusters. And I know in your area, you've got agriculture, forestry, oil and gas, and tourism. When I was a former economic development practitioner, we only had agriculture in our area, and my board of directors at the time wanted to diversify the economy. We had 32% unemployment, so we had a lot of people that were not working. And so I put together a target industry cluster analysis for the region I was working for to diversify the economy. We did have a military base, so we looked at the how could we benefit from the military base? We continued to have success with the food processing and agricultural. Well, with 32% unemployment, we needed to fill jobs. A lot of our citizens in that community at the time were working in the fields in agriculture. So where we went in to create jobs and wealth for individuals is we recruited back office call centers at the time. And during my tenure at that organization, we created 4 500-seat back office call centers, which was great because they were bilingual. They learned clerical skills, and then that would enhance to whatever their next job would be. So my next slide is why clustering. If you could slide down, thank you. Clustering is very interesting. So what ends up happening, which you probably already know in your county or region, is that you have forestry products, you have natural resources, oil and gas. Well, those companies, they all want to have presence in your area. So they're driven to get as close to their competitors or even try to push their competitors out. I'm sure you've come across that as well. Let's look at call centers real quick. Next slide, please. This is how we would take a look. So a client would say, let's say in Canada, in your region or in your country, they say, we would like to look in the west or the north or in the Quebec area. So we look at very large regions. We don't look at the provinces. And you can see that in the United States as well. We don't look at specific states. We look at very large regions. And then we start narrowing down within the region. So as an example, a client were to want to go to the west, that would include California, or if it was in, can you scroll up a little bit?
Oh,
One
sure.
more,
Sorry,
the other way,
Paige.
Bert. I'm not quite to the content. So your region, your 3 provinces is called the West. So the projects would look in that area. If it was a contact center, which is the next slide, it's very interesting how they look at projects. And I usually do this interactive physically, but what do you see differently, if I may ask to the committee here? How do you see the zones changed? Maybe scroll back up, Bert, and then scroll back down.
So there we have geographic, and there we have a different parameter.
Anybody have an idea?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Well, those are actually time zones. So back office call centers want to be able to service their companies, right? Or their customers. So they'll split them up by time zones. So if somebody were on the west coast of North America, they want to be able to capture the customers that are, towards the end of their day. And as you can see, time zones are not geographical boundaries either. They're more on time. So our search would be, as you can see in the yellow, that would go down through your area, but it would also go down clear into Mexico and through the central part of the United States for the central time zone. So the next slide, please. So these are the factors that we use to analyze for site selection. Typically, companies are looking for labor costs, what the quality is, transportation costs, like I said, real estate costs, utility costs, like in that case I told you earlier was with the cryptocurrency, and then of course quality of life. Quality of life is very hard to put a number on quality of life because you all live in your area and you feel that that's the #1 place to live, right? I live in Phoenix. I like Phoenix. It's hot, yeah, okay, so that drops down the number a little bit. You're cold, drops the number down, but it's really more of a subjective number. And then finally, kind of what puts the projects over the top is the incentives. And I always like to talk about this in a sense that I'm sure you've all bought cars, correct? And let's say you're buying that new Tesla, right? Well, you can go to 4 Tesla dealerships, right? They all have the same car, but where do you typically buy? If you're going to buy local, that's good because you're looking locally, right? But what if you can find a deal in British Columbia that's a little bit cheaper? Okay, or what if the dealer in British Columbia says, we're throwing in satellite radio to you, and they're providing good customer service, right? So that's where those incentives play into it. Next slide, please. I'd like to talk about the labor information from that slide that we just looked at. And we don't look at just the wages. We're not just saying, oh, well, we want cheap wages. What we look at is the availability of the workforce, the quality or the training of the workforce, and then finally the wages, because the wages are going to bear in each marketplace, right? Mm-hmm. And I'll just be honest with you, when 8 years ago, most of the site selector, my colleagues or my competitors, they had an intuition that your wages were much higher in Canada, right? Because of your government background and the socialistic aspect of it. But in actuality, it was not correct. And what I've been able to find, like in Ontario, it's actually cheaper to ship raw, like sugarcane or sugar into your country versus the United States. So that's why actually you're seeing in the Ontario and the Quebec areas, you're actually seeing more confectionery type businesses locating there because it's cheaper when they're buying bulk sugar to locate in Canada than to actually do that operation in the United States. Next slide, please. And I don't see any questions. Anybody got any questions? I'm almost done here.
I've got a couple, but I'm saving up.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, sir. The next thing that we look at is available land and buildings. And there's a new concept out there, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there's what's called a certified or shovel-ready land. So when we're doing the analysis, we know that all the encumbrances are taken care of. It's not just greenfield. And that brings you to a higher competitive advantage than somebody that just has greenfield. And typically there's a whole process with certified sites. And I think that your province is starting to do that, if I'm correct, Bert. But what it does is, again, companies are trying to reduce time to market and reduce risk. So if there's, let's say, an endangered species on this piece of property that the client is looking at, that's going to take some time to remediate the endangered species, correct?
Right.
But if that's all been taken or in a proactive way has been taken, and you've done your due diligence on how you would mitigate that endangered species, and you worked specifically with the province and maybe the federal government, then the company says, oh boy, we understand this. This looks great. We can do this, and there's no hurdles. Available buildings, that's typically, there's a lot of dirt all over the world. So the certified sites kind of brings it to the next level. And then spec buildings are very crucial because you have a building that's available. Next slide, please, Bert. And then quality of life, we look at the cost of living, the recreational activities, cultural activities. I also spoke about how that's a very subjective number. Everybody thinks they're a number 10, but let's just say in one community there's high crime rates. That's going to bring actually that number down on quality of life. Next step, or next slide, please, Bert. What do you do during a site visit? That means that we've already vetted out your county or your region. We've looked at the land. Confidentiality of the client is super key. Respective time during the site visit, driving the route ahead of time. I've been on projects where the local economic developer doesn't know where the building is, and make sure the existing buildings are open. Again, we not only had that issue with not knowing where the building was, but we got there and the building was locked. And we spent time and energy with the clients, really preparing them for this project, and we want to make sure that those buildings are over. Here's what we don't want during a site visit. We don't want the local band knowing. I've been on projects probably 10 years ago where we flew into town and the local high school band was it's great to have the hospitality, but it's not good to have the local band there, because what that does is it leaks the client's name. Then you have to deal sometimes with the newspaper or the social media or press. And you just definitely don't want to show up with the band on your tour, because these are very confidential. And some people say, well, why is it so confidential? Well, a company might be expanding or they might be relocating, correct? If they're relocating, that's going to actually cause turbulence with a company that's leaving that community, correct? I don't work a lot with those type of companies, but if they are, that's going to cause disturbance with families, that they're moving from one location to another. And so that's why we really like to keep that confidentiality. With all of that, you don't want this happening during the site selection process. Next slide. And that's not good. Other things that are related to having good community leadership with the economic development practitioners like Bert, your mayors and your county representatives really need to have a vision of exactly what you guys want, how you want to bring it in. Community activists are very important too, because you've got sometimes you have a lot of naysayers, correct? And I'll give you just a quick example. When I was in an economic development organization in that community that had 32% unemployment, we had an opportunity to bring in a refinery, oil refinery. Actually, it was down close to the U.S.-Mexico border, and we went out and we educated the citizens and the community activists in the community before that project even started to make sure that there was a buy-in. And it was creating close to 500 jobs, and the wages were about 7.5 times higher than what was happening in the county I was working in. So you want to make sure you bring in all of those. With that, next slide, please, Bert. Don't let the business, oh, you've rolled up a little too there, thanks. Don't let the business tie you up, have fun and be successful. Economic development and site selection, there is a science to it, but you can also have fun doing it. And with that, here's my contact information and we can go into some Q&A.
Okay, thank you for that, Dave.
Yes.
We also sit, our county sits on a regional economic committee called Growth Alberta. And
okay.
within the region, so within my area is probably closest, we have a facility that the province started back in the early 80s under Ralph Klein, our premier of the day. And the facility was designed to get rid of all the special waste in Western Canada. So all the PCBs that were in the transformers, and chemicals, you name it. In fact, we still have a company, believe it or not, that ships cargo containers full of medical waste from St. John's, Newfoundland. But we're a big country. From St. John's, Newfoundland to this facility in Swan Hills. It takes that truck 7 days to get here.
Yeah.
I don't know what that costs, but they send it here to dispose of it. The province within the last year has decided, well, we got rid of all the PCBs. We don't need it anymore. So now you're sitting there with a facility that used to have 120 people working there, down to 50, trying to look for something that they could use on that facility. They have a massive big burner up there. One of the questions, and I'm not sure if the mayor from up there or who it was, one of their councilors said, why can't we find some use for this facility? And I'm thinking you were discussing utilities. If you follow what's going on, not just here in Canada, but all over the world, power generation is going to go crazy in the last little while because we all got rid of our gas and diesel burning cars. We all have to go to electric.
Right.
Everything we do has to go electric. For a facility like that, as I said, that burner up there burns at, I believe, 1,200 degrees because it burnt all the PCBs. Everything that came out of there was then in a pellet, and they put it in huge dugouts and covered with plastic, so it's there forever. Anything else that was left over, they put down an 11,000-foot disposal well. Why couldn't waste products, and I'm thinking... there again, we sit right in the middle of one of the biggest forest areas in the province. When the forest companies get done logging, they push it in piles and burn it. Every municipality within the region has landfills where we're dumping and burying. Why couldn't we find I'm thinking a company that could convert something with that, a facility like that, into something that could now create power to feed the grid and create some jobs?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, my answer to that is, do you guys represent that area from economic development, or is Alberta?
The province owns the facility. They have it under lease to a company called Suez. And Suez is all over the world. They run similar facilities all over the world.
Yes. So I would have to just, I guess, speak to the representative in Alberta and see. Um, I'll be completely honest with you. We don't see a lot of marketing from your province. Um, it's I don't know if they're some of the provinces have databases of properties that are available, um, but I just don't see a lot. I'm doing actually some work over in Manitoba right now, and they have a group called Yes Winnipeg. And are you Bert? Are you involved with the regional group out of Edmonton or?
So we're just kind of on the cusp, right? So
Okay.
we follow the Edmonton Global Group, and certainly we've had ties with the Industrial Heartland, Parkland County, all that kind of area. So I think that at this point there may be co-partners and folks to emulate on some of this stuff, but certainly our goal with you is to get an understanding of what do we need to be doing so that we can solve that problem you just
Yes.
mentioned, that we're marketing some of
I
our
mean,
cases and our sites to site selectors.
an email blast every 2 months to the site selectors. I mean, I could give you the list of all the site selectors around North America. It's just good to have because it's not only the announcements, that we like to see. Oh, you created 500 jobs, or you created 25 jobs, or whatever. But also, and this is detrimental, like in your situation or in that situation with Suez, is that they're losing jobs, right? But that's actually creating an opportunity, and that needs to get to the site selectors. Because yes, that's detrimental to that community or that county because of the loss of the jobs. But at the end of the day, that says, hey, there's labor available for us, and B, there's a building available. So I would just love to talk to that if there's a person that represents that area to learn more about it so that we can help.
If it's all right, if it's all right with you, I will pass your information on to the mayor of the municipality, and they will be in touch.
Yeah, and what was the municipality, please, sir?
Swan Hills.
Swan Hills. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can give you some details offline as well, Paige.
Okay, great. Excellent. Yeah, no.
So, does there anyone else have some questions for our gentleman today?
Yeah, I would like to know how familiar, Paige, you are with the Woodlands area, and would it be appropriate for you to come and visit this area as kind of setting a base for your potential involvement? And if that was something that worked, I don't know if Bert could help us through the regional economic development area or Woodland specifically. What would be a cost associated with that?
Yeah, Bert and I have spoke about that, and I don't know if you want to talk or.
Paige, the thunder is yours. I invite you to please share whatever detail you wish.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give you an example. So there's 3,000 counties in the United States, or 3,007 counties, and I've been to 1,800 of them throughout my career. Touching and, like I said, kicking the dirt is very, very important to understand really what's happening, because you can see a lot of data that comes across on spreadsheets, but you can't really sometimes get the feel of what the community's all truly about, or the region. And B, there might be, like, for instance, had I driven to Swan Hill and gone through that community and saw that there was a building, right, that was available, and the local economic developer or the province isn't marketing it, then you connect the dots. You're like, oh, I have a client that will work for that. So, I would love to come up and, I think that it would work well if we could, come up and see the area, and if you could help me out on. I try to do it from a standpoint that is very cost prohibitive for you as a community. So if you could help out on maybe a couple hotel rooms, but I will not charge a stipend fee.
So we do have some calendar dates selected where we are hoping to have Paige to the area. Now the unfortunate thing is with our new COVID restrictions, which, as I said, Paige, I'll give you those details later on as well. That might affect that a little bit, but we are hoping in the very near future to have Paige to come up to see us. And there's a couple things that we can investigate. I've already got some talk going with a couple of our local companies to have Paige talk to them and look at some existing sites that there might be some opportunities for development. We can certainly add that Suez site to that and maybe incorporate the Rita a little bit more on some of that. And then Paige and I have also had a number of discussions about the SiteLink Forum. And that's, I think, a much broader and bigger discussion because there might be an opportunity for us here with Woodlands and probably with partners to host the first ever SiteLink Forum outside of the US, hopefully in 2022.
Correct. Yeah, that's. I think it would really. I think I've hosted these conferences, all over North America. I think I've done 15 of them, and I usually work in smaller communities. They're more what I call quaint. And what really is beneficial is that you have time to really pick the brains of the other site selectors. They're my competitors. We all kind of compete, but we also work together. If there's not enough manpower on one project, then some of us will actually help another competitor, which is really, you don't see that very often in just business in general, but that's how it works in our industry.
There's that, there's that typical kind of yin yang within economic development where it's the two snakes, right? You're chasing the other snake's tail and you're kind of eating each other, but you're also helping each other. And I mean, Paige, that's very evident within the site selector world and that part of things too, right? And so I mean, it would certainly be very exciting to be able to have you here and have you end up meeting face to face with some of our bigger industrial partners. As we were getting ready for our Dine event, which was our industry dinner with our local industry folks, I did have an opportunity to tell Paige some of the companies that we have that have invested and have current operations in our region. And I think that there's a fair bit of excitement there. There's some names there that I think you would really like to connect with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just also wondering if you've got any experience with the traditional energy companies, but also renewables and hydrogen. Our region has some real advantages in those areas, as well as forestry and agriculture. And your thoughts on that? Yeah.
So, you basically in North America have, let's say on the forestry side, you have a natural resource in your area, whether it's timber or if it's, did I lose you guys?
Nope, still here.
Okay. Whether it's timber, how about value added or composites? Maybe there's a way a lot of the building materials are now going to more of a composite, but there's still wood products involved in that. I've dealt with some companies all over North America from a standpoint of they're always looking for new opportunities. So really, at the end of the day, yes, I have worked in those sectors. I told you the oil refinery, that's a little dirty, probably too dirty for your area. But I get a lot of my leads from different trade shows. With COVID, that's been absolutely detrimental to our firm. But here in the U.S., we're slowly kind of getting out of that, and I think you guys are too. I'm not sure if
we were on
every day is a new story when I talk to Bert, but we will get through this pandemic for sure. But to answer your question again, sir, is that we've worked in all different industries, and if there's a way to complement and create more revenue for your area, whether it's by creating jobs wherein those people need services, they need to go, buy things. That's just going to add more to your economic diversification in the area. Hope that answers your question. I see. Is it Leisha, or she's got Lesia? I'm sorry.
No,
Sorry,
it's all good.
Sorry, I slaughtered your name.
It's usually is slaughtered, so you're just on par. I'm just kind of curious. I know that you are based in Arizona, as you stated, and you have worked and are working in Winnipeg. Are there any particular obstacles that you're finding dealing in Canada in comparison to the United States?
Oh, that's a good question.
Certain regulations or something that.
Yeah, I think honestly, I think your workforce is pretty highly educated. You've kind of got that Scandinavian influence, that comes into the area. But there's hurdles in every country that you go to. Yesterday, I was on a webinar in Thailand, and pretty good information. But the individual was talking about kind of the whole country as a whole. And of course, they're trying to recruit all these like electric automotive manufacturers, but he didn't really give examples of what the benefit or the cost advantage of locating in Thailand was. And so we brought that up. I mean, we're pretty frank and honest, because those are the tools that we need to, parlay over to our clients. But I mean, the only hurdles that I ever see between Canada and, let's just say, the U.S. is really that cross-border transportation. When your product can't get from point A to point B, and there's a stop, and it's an imaginary line or a gate, it slows the process down. And again, they're trying to get product either from the U.S. into Canada. I know right now that you guys are having problems right now trying to get food, groceries. And it's because of this political boundary and, two federal leaders that, I mean, people have to still eat, And I don't know if you could sustain without relying on the U.S. And there's some products that we have to rely on you in Canada, in the United States. So, I mean, I wish I could turn the key and open the gate, but I'm just a citizen like you guys are. So.
No, I was just wondering if there was maybe some kind of bill or that's in government, whether it's provincial or federal, that you have found that cause it to be sticky. So I'm just curious, but thank you.
It kind of gets down to this specific state. So like solar power is very big in Arizona, correct? Mm-hmm. And the state has actually passed state legislation to attract either solar panel manufacturers or actually solar generation facilities. Now, if you were to go to North Dakota, they don't have that piece of legislation they don't have that because the solar is not as prevalent as it is in the southern part of the United States. So you're seeing it more. And then I would say like in the southeast part of the United States, they are very, very good at economic development from a standpoint that, they give buckets of incentives away. I would say that that would be probably one hurdle that you have that the United States doesn't have, is that you can't provide subsidies or incentives at a local or a county level. Where, like, you could go to a community here, let's say in South Carolina, and the mayor can turn around and open up his vault and there's a barrel full of cash, from a competitive standpoint, that hinders you in Canada.
And you're right, Paige. Listening to the news last night, sometimes you just shake your head. And when you get politics involved in something, I noticed there's a U.S. senator now trying to convince all the cruise ships to bypass BC totally, because Canada produces the dirtiest oil in the world, so we got to bypass them. Like, sometimes you just got to sit back and shake your head. Like, I don't know, frustrating.
Yeah, well, they don't see the ramifications of it. They're trying to reduce. Well, let's look at this Keystone Pipeline as an example.
Yeah.
Okay. Shipping that oil, or shipping that, crude oil down to Texas, puts it in a container. It's more safe because it's in a pipe. It's reducing the carbon footprint, right, of transporting that. People are still, on crude oil, plastics are made out of it, jet fuel. There's so many things that people use that from that natural resource that I don't think it'll ever go away. But now that they've stopped the Keystone Pipeline, now they're looking at either shipping it on train or in truck. And their philosophy of reducing the carbon footprint has just expanded by like 400, 500%.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just.
Art, did you have another question?
No, I'm good. I understand the Warren Buffett problem as it relates to Canada, Keystone, and recently the efforts to get a natural gas propane line through to Eastern Canada are now being litigated by Warren Buffett as well. So, when Lesia was talking about hindrances, the politics of the U.S. and the Democratic Party are having real consequences for us here in Alberta.
Yeah, but let's look at it too, so that we're bipartisan in this sense. So what did Trump do, though, when he got into office that affected you guys?
Yeah.
What did he do? He stopped importing timber from Canada.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember him signing that executive order like day 2.
Yeah.
Now that created chaos, right, for your country, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it caused opportunity for the sawmills. They started opening up sawmills that had been mothballed in the United States for 20 years. So because of the signature of the pen, it created a situation in Canada, but it opened up an opportunity in the United States. I don't think that it's fair that you said a congressman or a senator says not to have any of the cruise ships coming up to your area. That stifles corporations, but they're using it from a standpoint of they're using it for a political reason instead of really looking at what the dynamic impact is going to be to feeding their citizens. Let's just get down to it.
Yep.
So anyway, that's.
Well, thank you for that. I'm thinking, with our discussion today, and hopefully to God, by spring we'll be through all this COVID BS. And if you heard, as of yesterday, we're in a total lockdown again. We're worse now than when this all started. So we've got to get through all this. But I'm hoping that by spring we'll be through this. And as I said, with our discussion today, I think having someone up and meet with us, and there again, some surrounding municipalities and elected officials and industry. Industry is going to be wanting something to look forward to, a ray of light at the end of this stinking tunnel. You know, I've never seen it this bad before. And there again, I talked with some of my industry partners, and they're really frustrated, and some of them don't know where the hell to go anymore.
Yeah.
It'd be someone like you to come up and maybe do a presentation, or give us something to look forward to.
Sure.
Ray of light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, I'm very optimistic in my way of thinking. I mean, you know, the Spanish, and I'll give you a quick scenario. Spanish flu came to North America 100 years ago, right? And it killed many people. Yet the civilization in North America survived, correct? And then we rolled into the Depression, and I mean, it just one thing after another, correct? But civilization still survived. My grandmother was actually born four years after the Spanish influenza or the Spanish flu. Okay, she lived to 90. She lived to 102, and guess what she died of?
Old age.
COVID.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
Gosh, eh?
So, you know, it's well, I'm just saying that the good Lord or whatever in this global environment, there's causes and effects all over, right? She lived a happy 102 years, but she missed it because she was born late, but then she was a victim of COVID, you know? So I guess at the end of the day, we have to be blessed that we are breathing every day. And I think if we take the precautions that we are, and you guys are doing it, I think you're doing it a lot better than us. I mean, you look at the folks in Florida that aren't even vaccinating, you know, and they're saying it's not our right, or it's they're taking away from our rights. But if we can't get it encapsulated or get it down to a flu-like symptom, this thing's just going to continue on, you know. So I think you're doing okay. You know, maybe they're a little extreme with. I mean, we never had the quarantines of, you know, only 2 people in the house and all of that. But I think if you're sensible and during the COVID, the heights of it here, I live in Phoenix and I really just didn't go out. I just stayed home, cooked at home, and you know, knock on wood, I haven't gotten it, but you just got to kind of be smart, I guess.
Okay.
So that's my philosophical saying.
Well, I think the exciting thing, Paige, is in the time that we've been talking to each other, you know, we've had a chance to kind of observe how the economies and you know, how elections and COVID and everything else have affected them, and we know that there are the economic opportunities that are out there, and the whole point of it is we just need to try and find some great specific projects that are market ready, that, you know, we can help to kind of use your expertise to market and to bring along, and the more we can teach you about our area, the better off we are. And so we've got some great fun ahead of us, I think.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to the opportunities, and if any of you or your committee members have, like I said, any specific questions, my phone number is wide open. There are some site selectors, because they get bombarded by so many communities. I mean, there's 45,000 communities just in the United States. But I think everybody deserves an opportunity to succeed to the next level, and would love to help you guys.
Okay. Hey, no questions. Thanks for being here today, Paige.
Sure, it was so nice. I'm sorry I can't see your faces, but maybe when I come up, then we can all raise a beer, or we can have I don't know, some kind of great food that you have up there, and actually be able to see face to face.
We'll be sure to give you some Alberta beef and some great Canadian beer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for your time. I will. I think you have other business, don't you, Bert?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll go. Okay, I'll get off of here. Thank you for your time. and look forward to meeting you all individually here in a few months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paige,
Thanks,
for
bye-bye.
joining us. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye, Bert. Thank you.
Okay, anything else you want to add there, Bert? Otherwise, I'll need a motion to accept the presentation for information.
No, I think Paige pretty much covered off a lot of it, and as everyone has seen, we've had some ongoing communication with him, and the lines of communication are open and ready to go. So I look forward to seeing where this might take us.
Okay, good, thanks. Okay, Bruce, you were flashing there.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the Paige Webster presentation as information.
Good, thank you for that. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll declare the motion carried. Okay, next things. Number 5, strategic thinking. Bert.
Yes. So what I'll do here, I'll go back to a share screen on the strategic thinking piece, and we can scroll through, and hopefully everybody can still see me as well. And certainly we'll just sort of keep working through the agenda. As requested by the committee, we have a budget update that's there. And we did have, of course, a number of things planned over the next little bit. So the industry dinner event, which we had to postpone, the Career Expo, which we're still funding, even if we have to take it virtually this year, which was the discussion that we just had the other day. That was, of course, prior to last night's announcement. So we'll wait and see what the status of that event is going to be, whether we have to postpone or whether we can move it to an online virtual event. And then, of course, the attendance at the Global Petroleum Show, which we unfortunately had to scrub last week. Just in talking with the delegates, myself, Art, and Bruce, even though DMG Events was putting in the best possible measures they could, the risk still just seemed a bit too high given where we're at on the COVID side of things for us to attend this year. And then, given yesterday's announcements, we'll see if the event still goes forward or what's happening. So those are some of the things. So we're certainly a bit behind in the percentage expenditure on the budget, basis to where we normally would be if we were in a normal year. But that gives us some opportunities to maybe look at some other things too before the end of the year as well, and we can kind of talk those through. The asset list and the information is there. The September-October calendars are there. Of course, over the course of the last couple of weeks, as mentioned, those have kind of changed greatly. And then there's the update there of the key performance indicators. So if there's any questions on any of that.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Bert? Anyone? Okay, if not, I need a motion to accept that for information.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Art. Any discussion? None, I'll declare the motion carried.
Yeah, the only note I'd have there, Dale, is just how difficult it was for us to cancel our partners with the local industry here, and then the Global Energy Show. I mean, we're trying to do as much as we can here as an economic development committee, but this has really made it difficult for us to serve the county in a way that I was hoping. But I don't think there's anything more that we could have done in light of what's happened with COVID, other than to carry this good work forward and plan to integrate it into the coming year.
Yeah, you're right, Art. And just looking at the companies back that were looking forward to sitting down with us and having that discussion, I was quite happy with that. And there again, when the province changes the rules because of what's going on, that's out of our hands. But it's good to see that industry does want to sit down with us. So I'm hoping in the near future, and I'm saying near future, we can get back and have that meeting with those people.
So the part of things that I'm pursuing right now is, we certainly can't do a large gathering, And we may not have the opportunity to even have a meeting of, of 4 or more. But we'll see how this exemption program wheels itself out over the next little while. There may still be the opportunity to do some very small meetings, maybe 2 people to 4 people with some of our industry partners. And so I know we're coming into the election schedule and, some more COVID-y kind of times and all of that. But I think that wherever I can move us forward in setting up some of those in-person meetings, or even if they have to be a virtual meeting, I'm certainly willing to do that. So the concept is there, and I think it's a solid one, and I'm excited to hear that the committee agrees with that. I'm going to continue to try to push things forward as safely and as best we can, given all that's going on.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Bert. And as you said, you're going to be in contact with them. I know I had intended on coming over this evening and having a discussion with you and the other gentleman. And again, if you can set up meetings, if I'm not available, if one of the other council members or committee members, I should say, is available, we'll get that out and maybe you can meet with a couple of the members. I think that would be important. Okay, next thing on the agenda, new business.
So we just have the one item under new business, and that is hearkening back to what we've talked about a couple of times, the agricultural profile. So the direction from the committee was for me to meet with Don, and for Don and I. So Don Fortin is our manager of agricultural services for the county. We have also the Agricultural Service Board that Don is the liaison and the admin person for. And so the idea was, well, how can we march forward on this? So the proposal that Don and I have put together is that we have our committee put forward 2 members. Don's committee will put forward 2 members. We can have a meeting very quickly here over the course of the next little while, probably a virtual one. But Don and I can put forward 3 or 4 different strategies or ways that we could proceed down this path of developing an ag profile that would recognize our existing ag operations, celebrate some of what's gone on before, highlight some of our opportunities. And then from that recommendation of that group of subcommittee members, we can have something that would come back to both committees that we can then sort of recommend to council. And the reason that we would like to see it done this way is because there may be the need to allocate more budget resources or more time towards this project. So if we get both committees on the same side and we have a recommendation that comes up through both channels, it would just seem to make more sense and be more inclusive. So that's the RFD that's in front of everyone.
Okay, any questions for Bert? If not, I'm going to go out here in left field. I'd like to put my name forward, and there's a couple reasons. Probably most of all, I'm probably the only farmer on the board right now. The other reason, I also sit on the Provincial Agricultural Service Board Committee, so that I'm the representative for the 13 municipalities in this part of the province. And the board, that committee consists of 5 ASB members or elected officials from all over the province. And we've been meeting with the minister a couple times every year to go over different things. So if there's something that would come out of this, I haven't through that committee, I have an open ear back to Mr. Grecian. So I would love to volunteer to be on this committee. Anyone else? Lesia?
Well, I was thinking, I know that Linda isn't being raised on a farm. I find this interesting, but with that said, being that Linda is from that area too, that is more predominantly agriculture, I wonder if she'd be interested. If not, I'd be more than happy to be part of this with you, Dale.
And thanks, Lesia. And she was the next one I was going to suggest. Linda, for those of you that don't know, was the county's Agricultural Service Board secretary for over 20 years. She knows the ins and outs of that board. And right now, she presently is the secretary for the local ag society. So she's looking at agriculture from that way too. And I'm sure she would let her name stand if you guys are willing to do that.
Perfect. I totally agree with that.
And
Yeah, I
she-
think that's a great fit. Somebody with that experience already is really going to help us move things forward with their knowledge of how things have worked in the past.
And Linda
Thank you
did
for that.
send her
Bert?
her regret for today. Unfortunately, she had some other meetings this afternoon that she was unable to move, so she wasn't able to join us today. But I think that the committee's on the right track.
So Bert, do we need a motion for that?
Yeah, so I think if we have a motion to put Dale and Linda forward on that joint subcommittee, that would be great. And then we know the Ag Service Board is actually meeting tomorrow. And so we should get their 2 committee members going tomorrow. And then, as is there in the recommendation, that we would meet prior to October 15th to make sure that we have a good recommendation coming forward back to the next committee meeting for both committees. So I think
I'll
that.
put it forward.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank bless you. Any further discussion? If not, I'll declare the motion carried. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. Work plan updates.
Okay, thank you very much, Dale. So there is one addition to this one, and I'm very happy to have Dana here with us today. But I also have some very sad news to report. Dana has successfully been able to, I guess, transition out of the property or out of the county as a property owner is maybe one way to put it. But Dana, did you maybe want to just chime in for a second to talk about your letter from yesterday?
Yeah, after trying for 3 years now, finally got an offer on my acreage and I've sold it. So we're going to be moving back into Whitecourt. So per the terms of reference for the committee, I am no longer eligible to be a member at large effective October 15th.
As I told you before, when I spoke with you, this is hard. You've been an awesome member on this board. It's a loss. Someone with your knowledge and of what's going on in the community. So your shoes are going to be hard to fill. But thank you for your time.
Like throw a chamber representative onto the committee and I'll put my name in again.
Okay, that'll be up to the new council going forward, but we'll have that discussion, I'm sure, or whoever will.
And Dana, I just want to sort of echo Councillor Klein's comments. It's been wonderful working with you in this capacity, and I know we'll continue to work together, in our ECDev circle and all of that. But it's been great having you on the board. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys.
So the update coming from that, then I know. So as a standard course of procedure, we always have 2 members at large positions that come open in October of every year for the Economic Development Committee. And so this year, I believe we have Linda and Art. And I know there are letters that have been sent out by Shannon. Art, you've indicated that you've received yours. I believe we have advertising out right now or going out in the next little while. And so the update to that then would be that we would add that there would be a 1-year position that we would have available to appoint someone to on our board as well. So Dana, as mentioned, we hate to see you go. And what we'd have to try to do is we'll see if we can find someone that we can appoint for a year that then would end up going into that normal 2-year renewal process. So that was kind of the first update there. So that brings us into the items on the updates. I can go in depth on any of them. Some of them we've kind of covered through a little bit already. I guess I'll just kind of do as quick an overview as I can, and then if anyone has questions, please just kind of let me know. But open farm days, so we did in the end have 3 farms that participated this year. We had the Backwoods Buffalo Ranch, which had about a dozen vendors on site. and approximately 200 to 300 people on their site each day. We also had the the Twin Acres greenhouse, and we had a tent set up on the Sunday. Councillor Klein and I attended on that event, and over the course of the 2 days, they had about 50 or so people at that event. And then we also had the Cherry Tree Hill Berry Farm, and they were one that wasn't on our radar initially, but they had sort of jumped on the bandwagon last minute with open farm days, and so we did have some materials there for distribution, but we didn't have staff and resources available to be able to set up on their location. She only had a few people over the course of the weekend, but it was really interesting this year to see that we had those 3 participants, and we fully expect that we'll see Blue Ridge Farms back into it next year, just due to some sort of a family growth situation and all of that. They weren't able to participate this year. But it is really exciting to see some of our farm venues really developing as sites and destinations unto themselves, and it's exciting to see those things happening. We have the Woodlands County photo contest on right now. All the details are up on our website. Lesia, we have you as our appointed judge, and they had submissions were coming in fairly slowly to begin with, but they've really picked up over the course of the last few days and the last week. So, Lesia, you'll have some good photos to judge, I think, based on what I've been seeing and hearing. For the Growth Rita in Wild Alberta, we haven't had a growth meeting throughout the summer, so we are expecting to see something happening here probably end of September, beginning of October. And we are still working on that process of getting Wild Alberta established as its own entity, and I have a meeting with that group as the designated representative from our committee on that group coming up in the next couple of weeks. We were able to do an in-person meeting at the Fort Assiniboine Museum with all of the folks around the Klondike Trail Initiative, and that was actually really informative. We ended up with 2 historians and 3 folks that were part of the Klondike Trail Society previously, there to tour and interpret and go through some of the information. Dale, did you have any comments on that?
Well, no. In fact, the one young lady that was there was from Sturgeon County?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, Sturgeon County. And they're in the process of doing some mapping, whatever, historical mapping with the Klondike Trail, whatever. And the young lady that was there needed some more information, so I put her in contact with Doug Borg. And for those of you who don't know, Doug used to be the Reaver Mayor here and spent many years doing research and actually clearing some of the trail with a group of other volunteers. So I put them in touch with together, and hopefully they can figure out exactly where the trail is and whatever within her part of the province. Doug is probably the most knowledgeable on that project of anybody in this part in the province. So hopefully they can work through that.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dale. So at the urging of some of our administrative staff, my initial title was the Woodlands County Industry Get Together, and it just didn't quite cut the mustard. So I put pen to paper and came up with a bit of a better name, I think. The Dinner for Industry Networking and Expansion, or the DINE event. So that was our industry dinner that we had sort of planned for this evening, which we postponed about 2 weeks ago. And given all that's transpired since, I'm glad that we did. Not because I don't want to see the event take place, but because it would have been massive headaches today. So I think we had a bit of forethought there. I don't want to lose that idea and that concept, and we've covered that through a little bit. So postponed for now, but certainly an idea that I hope that we can revisit as soon as possible. All of our BSN meetings have been moved to an online format. We did have a White Court BSN meeting planned for yesterday, and it was moved online.
quick
Sorry.
note there, Bert.
Yes.
I know that our dinner didn't go ahead, but are we still going to be able to pick 2 or 3 industry people and maybe have a coffee or a lunch with them? With the current COVID restrictions, that might be the only way we could maybe connect with some of these people. And I know you have a short list.
That's the path forward that I'm hoping for. The exciting thing that actually came out of the research on that event is I know we had talked about, trying to find a list of 20 or 25 of kind of our top industry folks. The list is actually much closer to about 70 to 75. And we have, folks from agriculture to forestry, to energy, and I mean it's everything from gas companies to oil production companies to pipeline companies to some of the oil service and construction companies. We've got a number of gravel companies that are on there. It's actually a more diverse and a wider list than I think maybe than we had kind of initially thought. So it's actually quite exciting. So there's huge opportunity to meet with and talk with some of these folks and carry that concept forward of building out. We want to have a positive relationship with you. We want to be able to talk to you. We want to be able to understand what your business is doing. We want to be able to help you with any expansion you might have going on. All of those tenets and precepts and everything are all there. And as we can navigate our way through this over the next little while, I'm going to conduct as many of those meetings in person in a 1-on-2 or 2 and 3 person format as we can, or virtually if we have to. But I think, and I'm hoping that that's going to be the bulk of where what I'm doing through September and October is maybe breaking that down from one big event into a whole series of smaller meetings.
So Bert, if you would, just an idea, as I said, if I'm not available, would you please check and see, depending on which companies might be available to do that with the other committee members, to see if we could have one of them there so we can have some more input.
I think that sounds like a really good way to do it, and I'm almost wondering if the thing to do might be let's hammer out some times where we can maybe plug people into. So give me
Sure.
a couple of days to work on that, but I will very much do that, Dale. If we can
Okay.
have a committee-based approach to it, I think that's an incredible strength.
Yeah, good, thanks.
So, like I said with our BSN meetings, the Whitecourt BSN was moved online and then canceled. The ones that we have later this month are now envisioned to being online, and more to come on that on the Career Expo Global Energy Show we've sort of covered off. So in regards to expenses for that, we did have a little bit over $2,000. I think it was between $2,000 and $2,100 that we ended up paying in registration fees. And so that's non-refundable, but they have given us a credit towards next year's show. So that's an expense that we've accrued for this year, but that will be credited to next year's attendance. No fee for the hotel rooms or any of the other travel. The part of it with the EDAC conference, it's going to be held online, and the link and registration is there. I have registered. But if there's anyone else from the committee that would like to register, we certainly have room in the budget that we can have a couple people take that in. And as that was sort of the venue last year where the connection with Paige came out of, I highly recommend that we have more than just myself attend the EDAC conference virtually if anyone is interested.
Yeah, so if there's anyone, maybe Bert, if you don't mind, get the agenda out to everybody just so they can have a quick look, and if there's anybody that's interested, get back to Bert and get registered.
Yeah, if you click on the link that's right there under I, it will take you right to the conference website. Great. And all of the information's there.
Okay, good, thanks.
Golden Triangle. I'm sorry, Dale.
How soon do you need to know?
I would say as soon as possible. I mean, it is virtual, so we're not dealing with travel or anything like that. But if those dates are available for somebody, I think we would certainly have the capacity, and we could probably send maybe 2 or 3. Right? It just depends what you guys would like to do.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Golden Triangle is
Golden-
just getting ramped up for the upcoming season. We've got a virtual meeting coming up here next week, and an update on the spearfishing movies. So it did have actually a reasonably successful theatrical run in the theaters in Edmonton and in a few other places, as we've indicated previously. And in a conversation that I just had with Tim yesterday, he has been able to secure a worldwide distribution deal for the movie, which will put it on several platforms. I'm not sure which ones at this point, but that's with the distribution company that he's used before out of the New Jersey area. So some exciting stuff there on spearfishing. And that's it, unless there's anything, any questions, anything else you guys would like me to speak to.
Okay, anybody got any questions for Bert on anything? If not, I'll need a motion to accept for information.
I'll
I can make that motion.
Thanks, Lesia.
So that was a fight
Any
between Lesia and Dana. Lesia, okay.
Okay, hearing
Give it to
none,
Dana, she's leaving us.
Yeah, let's make sure she's gonna give it to Dana.
And I think Dana
Get
has.
pity on me. Get me a motion in there for one last time.
You betcha. Well, Dana, I've already got your name written down next to adjournment today, so.
Okay, if nothing else, I'll declare that motion carried. Okay, Blue Sky, what do we have there, sir?
Okay, so there's a couple of fun things on there and a couple of interesting things. Dale, you mentioned it earlier as we were talking to Paige about some of the things about energy usage and power grid and all of that, and that's really what those last couple of stories speak to. It's incredibly interesting to see what some of the projections are for energy use needed to fuel the Internet of Things, our electric-based car economy, all of that kind of stuff. And then there's a really interesting project that just opened in Iceland a bit earlier this week. They're actually doing carbon capture coming directly from the air. So they're pulling carbon in. So the world's largest carbon capture machine to pull free carbon dioxide from the air just opened. It was interesting because I read a companion article to it the other day saying that the amount of energy needed to fuel the machine actually puts more carbon into the air than what that machine will pull out. But it's just kind of incredibly interesting, right? The idea with the Blue Sky is always to present to you guys some of the crazy, wild, and different things that are going on and that are happening. The article there on indoor farming I thought was quite interesting because it does talk about that Canada has a huge potential, and going back to what Paige had mentioned about food security and some of that, there are some opportunities, but Canada is certainly not at the forefront of that industry. So some information there. We've talked previously as well about the micropolitan areas, and so I thought it was interesting to include that North Dakota and Montana each have some of the fastest growing, most sound micropolitan areas within the U.S. And in many ways, those areas mirror us. So I thought that, as a comparative kind of benchmark, there might be future research or some future comparisons there. And then, of course, we've probably seen a number of stories recently about cryptocurrency, energy usage, the possibility of those things relocating into Alberta. There's been a couple of announcements, some good, some bad. So there's a kind of a whole mixed bag there. And then something that Councillor Rennie and I have talked about previously, we're both big fans of the Hollywood sign. And so recently, Wrexham in Wales had a construction of a knockoff of the Hollywood sign. So I just thought that as a community piece, that was interesting to put in for you. So those are some of the things there under the Blue Sky. Any questions?
Any questions or anybody else have anything? Okay, if not, I'll need a motion to accept for information.
Dale, it's Bruce.
Yes,
Make a
Okay.
motion to accept the Blue Sky discussion items as information.
good, thank you, sir. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll declare the motion carried. Okay,
That should take us through to the information items. And
Information item.
so there are a number of things there. That's really our window where I can submit to you guys the weekly reports and the provincial reports, and some of that. Of course, we'll see where the economy goes in the next little while. It's going to be incredibly interesting, as we all know. But for all intents and purposes, it seems like the second quarter and probably what we've seen so far in the third quarter has been pretty sound. We'll wait and see where things kind of go from here. But we were starting to see a bit of a resurgence and some things opening up, and even starting to see some labor shortages start to appear. So all of those indicators are there. The final article that's there is the one that's about the WED. And so after many years of, I think going back to the mid 80s or late 80s, we have a changing role at the federal level with WED. They're actually splitting the department up. And so the good news is we'll have a new federal office opening in Grand Prairie, which will be the service center for Northwest Alberta. But it's certainly different because now you'll have a development agency for the prairies, a development agency for BC. So we'll see whether there's any, federal wedge-driven kind of funding that comes around that, or exactly how that part of things is going to work. But that may have an effect to some extent on the community futures groups. I know Michelle is following it very closely, and we'll wait and see what happens. So far, it doesn't seem that it's going to affect their funding or their roles, but it certainly is going to be a little bit different now for Western Canada going forward, because instead of being, the West, as even in Paige's slides was indicated, we now have the prairies in BC. So a bit of a change to some thinking there.
Okay, thank you, Bert. Any further discussion? You need a motion for that one?
Yeah, just to accept on that one as well, unless there's any questions.
Yep. Okay, who's making the motion to accept for information? Okay,
I'll
anyone?
try again.
Thank
This
you,
is
Leslie.
Leslie. I'll make the motion.
Good, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, motion's carried. So in committee, we have nothing there today, sir?
No, I've got nothing to present unless anyone else has anything they want to bring up in committee.
No, and bad mouthing what's going on right now doesn't count, so let's not get into that. We're all where we are. We can do about it. We just have to accept it and move on, I guess. Anyway, if there's nothing else,
Then that brings us through to Dana's motion then.
Dana's gonna.
The motion to adjourn.
That would be the one, Dana. And again, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dana. There's no discussion on that. I'll declare the motion carried, and the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone, for being here.